I can't believe what's happening in Ashbourne right now. If you thought this offseason was going to be quiet for the Commanders, you're completely crazy. I've got 3 stories that are going to make you jump out of your seats. And the last one will leave the entire Burgundy and Gold Nation completely shocked. First, Austin Ekeler finally reveals the truth behind his move to Washington. And believe me, what you're about to hear will surprise you. This isn't just a story about a veteran changing teams. It's a lesson on loyalty, respect, and how personal connections can change the course of a career. Then, Frankie Luvu is sending a clear message to the whole locker room, showing exactly why this team reached the championship game. But it's not just about motivation. We're talking about a leader setting the tone for a potentially historic season. But wait, because if that impresses you, the third news will completely change the future of this franchise. We're talking about a potential trade involving our star receiver and one of the best pass rushers in the league. If you don't stick around till the end, you'll miss the most explosive news we've had in months. Let's get right to it. Look, when Austin Ekeler arrived in Washington, many of us thought it was just another veteran seeking an opportunity with an up-and-coming team. But the reality is much deeper and more personal than anyone imagined, and the way the Chargers treated him should be a lesson for the entire league on how not to handle your veterans. Ekeler just revealed in a recent podcast that his decision to sign with the Commanders had nothing to do with money or chances of winning a ring. It all came down to a personal connection few knew about: Anthony Lynn. Yes, the same Anthony Lynn who is now our running backs coach and was instrumental in creating the best version of Ekeler in Los Angeles. I'm telling you, the story behind this signing is exactly what we needed to hear. Ekeler found all his early NFL success under Lynn's leadership when he was the head coach of the Chargers from 2019 to 2020. During those years, Ekeler became one of the most versatile running backs in the league, combining ground power with receiving skills that turned him into a defensive nightmare. When Lynn came to Washington after his stint in Detroit, that connection reignited immediately. Ekeler knew that with Lynn, he could maximize his contribution to the team, especially in an offensive system that values versatility and veteran experience. But here's what really bothers me about this situation, and this needs to be said. The Chargers treated Ekeler with total disrespect in Los Angeles. We're talking about a player who led the NFL in touchdowns in 2021 with 20 touchdowns, and then repeated as leader in 22 with 18 total touchdowns. And how did the Chargers reward him? With a slap in the face after leading the NFL in touchdowns for 2 consecutive seasons. After being one of the main reasons Los Angeles was competitive, Ekeler approached the organization asking for a contract extension. An extension well-deserved, fair, and logical for a player of his caliber. The response was a resounding no. But I ask you, how can you say no to a player who gave you 18 touchdowns in a season? How can you turn your back on someone who had over 1,800 yards from scrimmage in 2022? That's pure disrespect, and the Chargers will regret that decision for years. And you know what's the craziest thing about all of this? When Ekeler told them he wanted to be traded if they weren't going to pay him what he deserved, the Chargers had the audacity to ask for a first-round pick for him. A first round? For a player they wouldn't pay? For someone they claimed wasn't worth the money for an extension? That's burgundy and gold, baby, because that's how you treat a veteran who gave you everything. The Chargers basically told Ekeler, "You're not worth enough for an extension, but you are worth a first-round pick in a trade." There's no logic there, and Ekeler had every right to feel insulted. The reality is no team was going to offer a first-round pick for Ekeler at that stage of his career, and the Chargers knew it. It was a tactic to keep him captive in a situation where he wasn't valued or compensated properly. Now Ekeler is in Washington, working with the coach who helped him develop his best self, and we have a veteran who knows exactly what it means to be underestimated by an organization. Do you think this experience won't motivate Ekeler to give his all this season? Look at Ekeler's stats under Anthony Lynn. In 2019, he had 557 rushing yards and 9 193 receiving yards. In 2020, he recorded 530 rushing yards and 403 in the air. The chemistry between these two is real, and now they have the opportunity to recreate that magic in a team that values both production and experience. What excites? And me about having Eckler is his mentality. This is a player who's been underestimated his whole life. He wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, had to earn everything at Western State, Colorado, and came to the NFL as an undrafted free agent. He's had to prove his worth at every level, and now he has the chance to do it with a team that truly appreciates him. Furthermore, do you know what this means for Brian Robinson Jr. and for our entire running back room? Having a veteran, Mike. Eckler, who's been in playoffs, who's led the league in touchdowns, who knows what it is to be a first option in an elite offense. That's invaluable for the development of our young players. And don't forget about the receiving aspect. Eckler has had seasons with over 100 receptions. In an offensive system that uses multiple formations and values the versatility of running backs, having someone with those skills gives Cliff Kingsbury additional options we didn't have. Last year, if that surprises you, wait to hear this, because we have a leader in this locker room who's setting things straight right now, and his message goes beyond simple motivational words. Frankie Luvu isn't messing around when it comes to keeping standards high in Washington, and what he's doing goes way beyond being a good player. This man, who came last year as an underestimated signing and ended up being selected for the second-team All-Pro alongside Bobby Wagner, is sending a clear message to the entire locker room that could define the success of the whole season. I believe this is precisely the mentality we need, not just to repeat last year's success, but to surpass it. Luvu isn't satisfied with reaching the NFC Championship game. For him, last year is history, and now it's about setting a new standard that takes this team to the next level. But before we talk about his words, let's talk about his actions. Last year, because that's what gives him credibility to speak this way. Luvu arrived in Washington as a free agent from the Panthers, where he had been a solid but not spectacular player. Most of us didn't know what to expect from him. What did we get? A linebacker who recorded 67 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 8 pass defenses. But stats don't tell the whole story. Luvu became the heart and soul of a defense that transformed the Commanders from pretenders to legitimate contenders. His partnership with Bobby Wagner completely changed the dynamic of our defense. While Wagner was the brain and experience, Luvu was the energy and explosiveness. Together they formed one of the best linebacker duos in the entire league, and both were recognized with All-Pro honors. But I'm telling you this, what made Luvu special wasn't just his stats. It was his ability to make big plays in crucial moments. Do you remember the interception against Dallas that shifted the game's momentum? Do you remember how he always seemed to be in the right place on third down? That's no accident. That's elite player instinct. Luvu's exact words were devastating, and you need to hear every word. I know we have unfinished business. We left a lot out there last year, but last year was last year. This year is a new beginning, a new start. We just have to do the work now, so when the time comes, we can celebrate. Do you know why this is great? Because Luvu is speaking like a true leader. He's not living on last year's laurels. He's not satisfied with having surprised the league. This man wants more, and he's challenging every player in that locker room to have the same hunger. But the most important part of his message is, we have to do the work now. Luvu understands success isn't an accident. He understands that to return to the championship game and win this time, they need to prepare now from these off-season workouts. From every rep in practice. Remember, Luvu was an undrafted free agent out of Washington State. This is a man who's had to earn everything in his career, from getting an NFL opportunity to becoming an all-pro player. No one gave him anything, and that mentality is exactly what this locker room needs. What impresses me is how Luvu is using his credibility from last year to elevate his teammates. When a player who had the season he had tells you to work harder, you listen. When someone recognized as one of the best in their position challenges you, you respond. And let's talk about the timing of this message. We're at a point where many teams that had success last year fall into complacency. The Commanders could have easily gone into this season thinking they've already made it, that they've already proven they can compete at the highest level. Luvu is cutting that mentality at its root. He's saying the work is just beginning, that what they achieved last year was just the first step in a bigger process. Now, I ask you, isn't this type of leadership exactly what separated the Commanders from the rest of the league last year? Dan Quinn trusts players to self-regulate, and Luvu is demonstrating he fully understands that responsibility. He's being the internal cop that keeps everyone focused. The reality is, after being so close to the Super Bowl, after losing that championship game in Philadelphia, Luvu is hungrier than ever. And if you think that's intimidating for opponents, wait to see what this mentality will provoke in the rest of the locker room once training camp starts. Because here's the thing. When you have leaders like Luvu setting the tone, when you have veterans who aren't satisfied with past success, that becomes contagious to the entire team. Rookies will see that intensity and immediately understand what's expected of them. Veterans will remember why they came so far and will double down on their efforts. And don't forget what it means to have Wagner and Luvu together for another season. Last year was their first season playing together, and they already established a special chemistry. Now, with a year's experience working in Dan Quinn's system, with a deeper understanding of each other's roles, this duo can be even more dominant. Plus, Luvu is sending a clear message to the new players who arrived this offseason. He's saying it doesn't matter what they did on other teams. In Washington, excellence is expected, hard work is expected, and contributing to the common goal of reaching a Super Bowl is expected. But that's nothing compared to what's coming, because the next news could completely divide the Burgundy and Gold Nation and redefine the future of this franchise for the next 5 years. You're crazy if you think what you're about to hear won't change the entire landscape of the Washington Commanders for the next years. According to David Hellman from Fox Sports, there's a possibility Washington may trade Terry McLaurin for T.J. Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I need you to grasp the magnitude of what this would mean. I can't believe we're even considering this. But at the same time, I fully understand the logic behind the move. McLaurin missed the mandatory minicamp seeking a contract extension, and negotiations have gone silent as training camp approaches. That's never a good sign when you're trying to keep your star. But before analyzing the implications of this potential trade, let's talk about what each player represents for their current team, because this isn't just about swapping talent. It's about swapping identities. Terry McLaurin has been the face of the Commanders' offense since he was drafted in the 3rd round of 2019. In his 6 seasons in the league, he has accumulated 384 receptions for 5,130 yards and 31 touchdowns. But stats don't capture the full story of what McLaurin means to this organization. During the franchise's darkest years, when we had quarterbacks rotating every week, when the front office was a circus, when fans lost hope, McLaurin kept giving his all every Sunday. He was professional when others were creating drama. He was productive when others disappeared. He was loyal when others saw exits. Scary Terry became the soul of this offense, the most reliable connection for any quarterback coming to Washington. With Jaden Daniels last year, they developed a special chemistry that was fundamental to our success. McLaurin had 82 receptions for 1,096 yards and 13 touchdowns, numbers that don't fully reflect his impact in critical situations. On the other hand, T.J. Watt represents something entirely different, but equally valuable. We're talking about the 2021 Defensive Player of the Year, a player who has recorded at least 11 sacks in each of the last 6 seasons, including a 22.5 sack season that put him in historical conversations. Watt isn't just a pass rusher. He's a chaos generator. He's the kind of player that changes game plans, that gives offensive coordinators nightmares, that can win games single-handedly with one play. On a $112 million contract, He's proven to be worth every penny. Now, here's the reality many don't want to admit. If Washington trades McLaurin, they'd be freeing significant financial space to add one of the most dominant pass rushers in the entire league. McLaurin is in the final year of his current contract and seeking an extension likely in the range of $25 to $30 million per year. Watt already has his contract secured and would give Dan Quinn an elite player who would completely change our ability to get to the quarterback. Look at our pass rush numbers from last year. The Commanders finished with 36.5 sacks as a team, which put us in 13th place in the league. Respectable, but not dominant. Dorrance Armstrong led the team with 8.5 sacks, followed by Jonathan Allen with 7. Solid numbers, but when you compare them to what Watt does individually, the difference is vast. The Commanders added Dietrich Wise Jr. this offseason to pair with Armstrong, but neither has the elite level nor game-changing ability that Watt possesses. We're talking about a player who's been Defensive Player of the Year, who consistently generates between 15 and 20 sacks per season, and who's proven he can perform at the highest level in the playoffs. Now I ask you, isn't it harder to find a Defensive Player of the Year level pass rusher than an all-pro level receiver in the current NFL? Because that's exactly the argument Hellman is making. And I have to admit it makes a lot of sense from a roster-building perspective. The theory is with Deebo Samuel, Michael Gallup, Jalen Lane, and potentially other receivers available in free agency or via trade. The Commanders could compensate for the loss of McLaurin. But finding another T.J. Watt is practically impossible. Moreover, there's the time factor. The Commanders have a specific window with Jaden Daniels in his rookie contract. Before they have to pay him $40 to $50 million per year, they have 2 to 3 seasons to maximize his talent around with veteran players. Watt fits perfectly within that time window. But here's my problem with this whole scenario, and this needs to be said. Terry McLaurin has been loyal to this organization through all the tough years. When we had Alex Smith injured, when Case Keenum was our starting quarterback, when Dwayne Haskins was a failed first-round pick, when Carson Wentz was our savior, McLaurin remained professional and productive. And you know what's the craziest thing about all this? We already brought in Deebo Samuel this offseason, also signed Michael Gallup, and drafted Jalen Lane. Management is clearly preparing for the possibility McLaurin won't be here long-term. Those aren't coincidences. Those are strategic decisions. Samuel is coming off a tough season in San Francisco, but is still capable of 1,000-plus yards when healthy. Gallup has experience as a number 2 receiver in Dallas and understands what it means to play in the division. Lane is a rookie with upside who was a steal in the draft. But I'm telling you, trading McLaurin won't bring us closer to the level we had at the receiver position last year, no matter the acquisitions we made. Scary Terry isn't just an elite receiver. He's the soul of this offense and the most reliable connection. Jaden Daniels has look what happened in the championship game against Philadelphia. When we needed crucial yards, when Daniels was under pressure, McLaurin was the escape valve. That chemistry doesn't develop overnight, and losing it would be a significant blow to our offensive capacity. On the other hand, our need for a pass rush is undeniable. If we look at what happened in that same game against Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts had too much time in the pocket in critical moments. We need more quarterback pressure to take us to the next level, and Watt would give us that. Immediately, imagine T.J. Watt in a Dan Quinn scheme. Quinn has proven he knows how to utilize elite pass rushers, and having someone like Watt will completely change how offenses have to prepare to face us. They couldn't devote extra resources to stop the run if they know Watt is coming after the quarterback. Plus, there's the psychological factor. Having a Defensive Player of the Year on your roster sends a message to the rest of the league about your intentions. It tells everyone you're building to win now that you're not satisfied with reaching the championship game. But there's also the financial aspect we can't ignore. Watt's contract is massive, but it's structured in a way that's manageable for a team with the Commanders' finances. On the other hand, Extending McLaurin would probably cost between $100 and $130 million over 4 or 5 years. The reality is both Watt and McLaurin skipped their respective teams. Minicamps, both seeking contract extensions or resolutions to their contract situations. But do we really believe either will end up on a different team than where they are now? The Steelers have built their defensive identity around Watt. He's the leader of that locker room, the franchise's most recognizable player, and the anchor of a defense that's consistently been top 10 in the league. Trading him would be like admitting they're entering rebuild mode. On the other hand, the Commanders just reached a championship game with McLaurin as a key piece. Are they really going to dismantle an offense that worked so well last year? Are they going to risk losing the chemistry between Daniels and his most reliable receiver? But I ask you this, what if this trade actually happens? How would that change the whole NFC landscape? Because adding TJ Watt to a defense that already has Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, Frankie Luvu, and Bobby Wagner would be absolutely devastating for rival offenses. Think of it this way. The Eagles eliminated us last year partly because they could control our pass rush. With Watt on the roster, that equation changes completely. Hurts wouldn't have had the time. He had to make the plays he made. And don't forget the draft capital we could obtain in addition to Watt. If this trade happens, it would likely include additional picks the Commanders could use to fill other gaps on the roster. What do you think of this possible trade? Are you willing to say goodbye to Terry McLaurin, the soul of our offense, for the chance to have one of the best pass rushers in the league? Look, these 3 stories show us exactly where the Commanders are right now, and each tells a different story about the future of this franchise. We have veterans like Eckler coming here for the right reasons, connecting with coaches who bring out the best in them. We have leaders like Luvu setting high standards and refusing to accept complacency. And we have potentially historic decisions like McLaurin's possible trade that will define our future. Eckler's story teaches us about the value of relationships and how a personal connection can bring out the best in a veteran player. His experience with the Chargers shows us how not to treat your stars, and his arrival in Washington demonstrates that this front office understands the value of pairing players with the right coaches. Luvu's leadership tells us this locker room isn't satisfied with last year's success. They're hungry for more, willing to work for more, and establishing a culture that could sustain us for years. When you have all-pro players telling the rest of the team that the work is just beginning, that's exactly the mentality you need to win championships. And the possible trade of McLaurin for Watt represents the biggest decision we could face in years. Do we prioritize offensive continuity and loyalty to a player who's given us everything? Or do we make the bold move that could take us to the next level defensively? The reality is we're at a crucial moment for this franchise. The decisions Adam Peters makes in the coming weeks will determine whether we can return to the championship game and win it this time, or if we're going to fall short for lack of boldness at critical moments. Do you believe Eckler will have a bigger impact than expected? Do you think Luvu's leadership will elevate the whole team to the level we need to compete for a Super Bowl? And are you in favor or against the possible trade of McLaurin for Watt? I need you to tell me all your opinions in the comments, because this burgundy and gold community always has the best perspectives and insights. You understand this team, you understand what's at stake, and your opinions matter in these conversations. If you want to stay updated with all the most explosive Commanders news, with analysis you won't find anywhere else, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. We're not here to give you the superficial news you find everywhere else. We're here to give you the deep analysis you deserve as true fans. We're a family here, and every subscriber is part of this passion we share for our team. Every like, every comment, every share helps more fans join this community that lives and breathes burgundy and gold. Like this video if you think we should keep McLaurin and find another way to improve our pass rush. Dislike if you think the trade for Watt is the right move that would take us to the next level. And make sure to comment with your reasons, because I want to hear all the arguments. And remember, I guarantee tomorrow we'll have more explosive news that will keep you on the edge of your seats. This offseason is being more intense than any of us expected, and every day brings new developments that could change the Commanders' future. You can't miss what's coming, because if you thought these news were impactful, wait to see what's next. Stay connected, stay informed, and stay passionate. And remember, hail to the Redskins!